All right, let's kick off this deep dive. We're taking a close look at Tesla today, specifically their Q3 performance for 2024. And we're going straight to the source, their 10Q filing with the SEC. Now, these things can be a bit of a headache to get through, so we're going to do the heavy lifting for you. We're going to break it all down and pull out the most interesting bits.
Exactly. No need to be a finance whiz to follow along.
Okay, so right off the bat, one thing that really jumps out is the gap between production and deliveries. Tesla churned out over 1.3 million vehicles in the first 3 quarters of 24, but they only delivered about 1.29 million. What's your take on that?
Well, a difference like that could signal a few things. Could be those pesky supply chain issues that seem to be plaguing everyone.
Right, but you'd think Tesla would have ironed those out by now, wouldn't you?
You would think so, yeah. But global supply chains are a beast, especially for a company with the scale and ambitions of Tesla. Another possibility is that demand for their vehicles might be starting to cool down.
So maybe not everyone's jumping on the EV bandwagon as quickly as they were.
Could be. Or, and this is where it gets interesting from a strategic standpoint, Tesla could be holding back some of their inventory on purpose.
Oh, interesting. Why would they do that?
It could be a way to manage prices, or even just a logistical play on a global scale.
So a bit of a puzzle there. All right, let's move on to a section in this report called, and I'm just going to read the title here, Management Opportunities, Challenges, and Uncertainties and 2024 Outlook. Bit of a mouthful, I know, but it gives us some insight into Tesla's overall strategy. One thing that stood out to me was their focus on both profitability and growth. They specifically mentioned using their existing factories to roll out new, more affordable products.
That's a key point. Tesla's reputation is built on high-end vehicles, but this suggests they're looking to reach a wider market.
Yeah, they can't rely on just the luxury market forever if they're aiming for mass adoption, right?
Exactly. And remember those production numbers we talked about earlier. This push for affordability is probably a big part of why those numbers are so high.
Makes sense. They also mentioned plans for a robotaxi product and the ongoing development of their full self-driving capabilities. Seems like they're looking toward a future where car ownership isn't even necessary.
It's a bold vision, for sure. They're thinking beyond individual car ownership and towards autonomous ride-hailing services. This could really shake up the entire transportation industry.
Speaking of shaking things up, let's talk about Tesla's energy generation and storage business. They deployed a massive 20.41 GWh of energy storage products just in the first 3 quarters of 24. That's a lot of power. What's that telling you?
It shows that Tesla is serious about becoming a big player in renewable energy. It's not just about electrifying transportation for them. They want to change how we generate, store, and use energy across the board.
So they're putting their money where their mouth is when it comes to their whole sustainable energy mission. Now, here's something else that caught my eye. Their consolidated balance sheet shows Tesla holding $184 million in digital assets. Seemed like a pretty bold move. What's the thinking there?
It definitely suggests a willingness to explore new financial tools. They accepted Bitcoin payments for a while. This digital asset holding could be anything from a hedge against inflation to a strategic bet on blockchain technology.
Or maybe a combination of both. It certainly sets them apart from your typical automaker.
Okay, before we wrap up this first part of our deep dives, we've got to talk about the legal battle they're in with J.P. Morgan Chase. It all goes back to a 2014 convertible notes offering.
Ah, yes, the whole funding secured tweet saga.
Exactly. That's what kicked this whole thing off. Back in 2018, Elon Musk tweeted about taking Tesla private. And J.P. Morgan is claiming that tweet gave them the right to adjust the strike price on stock warrants related to that offering, which ended up costing Tesla a lot of money.
It's a fascinating case that really highlights how social media, especially coming from someone as influential as Elon Musk, can have huge and unpredictable financial consequences.
Yeah, it makes you wonder if he regrets sending that tweet now. Maybe. But it's important to point out that Tesla is countersuing J.P. Morgan. They're arguing that the bank's actions were unreasonable.
So it'll be interesting to see how this all plays out in court. It definitely underscores how complex these financial agreements can be and how interpretations can differ so wildly. But we'll leave that legal drama there for now.
We're back for part 2 of our Tesla deep dive, and now we're shifting gears to the future. What's Tesla got planned, and what might be standing in their way?
Well, hidden away in this 10Q, we've got a detailed look at their production roadmap, both for existing models and ones still in the works.
Oh, so we're getting a sneak peek behind the scenes. What's coming down the pipeline? They list the Model S, Model 3, Model X, Model Y, the Cybertruck, of course, and even a mysterious future product.
Future product, huh? That's intriguing. What do you think it could be?
Oh, there's no shortage of speculation out there. Some are saying it could be a compact electric car, something affordable aimed at the mass market. Others think it might be a solar-powered vehicle, fitting in with Tesla's whole sustainable transportation thing.
A solar-powered car. Now that would be game-changing.
It would, but Tesla's also heavily invested in AI and robotics. Maybe this future product is something completely different, like an AI-powered home energy system or even a personal robot assistant.
Those are some pretty ambitious possibilities. But let's face it, Tesla is facing some serious competition. Other car makers are catching up in the EV race, and the energy storage market is getting crowded.
Yeah, can Tesla hold on to that first mover advantage? That's the million-dollar question. These traditional auto giants, they've got deep pockets and years of experience. Plus, you've got new EV startups popping up all the time, each with their own innovations.
So it's a real battle for dominance in this industry, and things are changing so fast.
Exactly. And, those supply chain problems we were talking about earlier, those definitely aren't making things any easier. Tesla's going to have to be nimble and figure out how to navigate those disruptions and secure the materials they need if they want to stay ahead of the game.
And speaking of challenges, this 10Q also has a whole section dedicated to risk factors. It lays out all the potential things that could threaten Tesla's business.
Every company has risk factors, sure. But Teslas are particularly interesting, to say the least.
Like the fact that their whole business is so heavily reliant on Elon Musk. He's the visionary, the driving force. But what happens if his attention shifts to his other ventures, like SpaceX or xAI?
That's a valid concern,
Yeah.
definitely something investors are keeping a close eye on. His leadership's been crucial to their success, but it also creates a concentration of risk.
Absolutely. Another risk factor is the whole regulatory uncertainty. Governments are still figuring out how to regulate electric vehicles, autonomous driving, renewable energy, all of it. Any sudden policy changes could really throw a wrench in Tesla's plans.
Oh, for sure, they're operating in a very fluid environment where the rules of the game can change quickly. They're going to need to be adaptable and politically savvy to really thrive.
This brings up an interesting point about Tesla's overall image. They're seen as a leader in sustainable tech, but they've also had their share of scrutiny and legal issues.
That's right. Back in 2022, there was a lawsuit filed against Tesla alleging systemic race discrimination and a hostile work environment at their factories.
Yeah, that's a serious accusation, and Tesla denies it, of course. But regardless of how the lawsuit plays out, it raises important questions about corporate responsibility, especially for a company that's often perceived as progressive and forward-thinking.
It's a reminder that innovation and sustainability go beyond just technology and products. It's also about a company's impact on its workforce and the communities where it operates.
This case has definitely gotten a lot of attention and could have major implications for Tesla and potentially for the wider corporate world as well.
Definitely. If the court rules against Tesla, they could be looking at hefty fines.
Yeah.
And they might be forced to make big changes to their workplace practices. But honestly, the damage to their reputation could be even more significant. It could affect their brand image and how consumers view them.
It sounds like this case is really putting a spotlight on corporate social responsibility in a way we haven't really seen before.
Yeah, I think so. Consumers and investors are raising the bar for what they expect from companies. There's this growing pressure for businesses to not just focus on profits, but also on ethical behavior and social impact.
And this ties back to what we were talking about with those ESG factors. Investors are using those metrics more and more to evaluate a company's long-term sustainability and to assess potential risks.
Exactly. This lawsuit could push Tesla to take a more proactive approach to diversity, equity, and inclusion within their workforce. It also highlights how important transparency and accountability are when it comes to addressing these issues.
It feels like this case is sparking a bigger conversation about how we hold companies accountable, not just for their financial performance, but also for their social impact.
It's a crucial conversation to be having, no doubt. As consumers, investors, and citizens, we have a responsibility to look closely at the companies we support and to demand better from them.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive into Tesla. We've analyzed their financials, we've looked at their ambitious plans for the future, and we've wrestled with some complex issues around corporate responsibility and social impact.
It's clear that Tesla is a company that's pushing boundaries and challenging the status quo, but they're also facing some serious obstacles in a rapidly changing landscape.
As we wrap up this part, it's important to remember that the information we've discussed is just a starting point. The real deep dive begins when you continue to explore these topics on your own, when you critically evaluate the information that's out there and form your own informed opinions.
Absolutely. The world of business and technology is in constant flux. Staying informed and engaged is crucial if you want to understand the forces shaping our future.
Welcome back to the final part of our Tesla deep dive. We've covered a lot of ground already, but I want to circle back to that lawsuit alleging race discrimination at Tesla's factories.
Right. That lawsuit, filed back in 2022, alleges that Tesla allowed a hostile work environment to fester at their Fremont factory, for Black employees specifically. And it's not just talking about isolated incidents, it paints a picture of systemic issues.
Yeah, it's a serious accusation, and of course Tesla denies it. But whatever the outcome of the lawsuit, it brings up some really important questions about corporate responsibility, especially for a company that's often seen as being progressive and forward-thinking.
It definitely makes you think about what innovation and sustainability really mean. It's not just about technology and products, it's also about how a company treats its workforce and the impact it has on the communities where it operates.
This case has gotten a lot of attention, and it could have some pretty big consequences for Tesla, and maybe even beyond Tesla for the corporate world as a whole.
Oh, absolutely. If the court rules against Tesla, they could be hit with some big fines, and they might have to make some major changes to how they do things in the workplace. But honestly, the damage to their reputation could be even more significant. It could really affect their brand image and how consumers see them.
This whole thing seems to be shining a light on corporate social responsibility in a way we haven't seen before.
Yeah, I think so. Consumers and investors are expecting more from companies these days. There's this growing pressure for businesses to think about profits, sure, but also ethical behavior and social impact.
And this ties back to what we were talking about earlier, those ESG factors. Investors are really using those metrics to evaluate a company's long-term sustainability and to assess risks.
Absolutely. This lawsuit could push Tesla to be more proactive about diversity, equity, and inclusion within their own workforce. And it really shows how important transparency and accountability are when it comes to these kinds of issues.
It feels like this case is starting a much bigger conversation about how we hold companies accountable, not just for how much money they make, but also for their social impact.
It's a crucial conversation, no doubt about it. As consumers, investors, citizens, we have a responsibility to look closely at the companies we support and demand better from them.
Well, we've covered a ton of ground in this Tesla deep dive. We analyzed their financials, we dug into their future plans, and we talked about some pretty complex issues like corporate responsibility and social impact.
It's clear that Tesla is a company that's not afraid to push boundaries and challenge the status quo. But they're also facing some big hurdles, and the landscape is constantly changing.
And as we wrap up, it's important to remember that what we talked about today is just the beginning.
The real deep dive starts when you keep exploring these topics, critically evaluating the information out there and forming your own opinions.
The world of business and technology is always evolving. Staying informed and engaged is key to understanding where things are headed.
That's so true.
So on that note, we'll leave you with this. Tesla's journey, just like the future itself, is full of potential and uncertainty. Whether they succeed or stumble, their story is a good reminder that innovation often comes with a price, and the choices companies make have a ripple effect. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep learning.